Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Climb Blue Podcast post-match reaction. I'm your host, Dan Rowlinson, joined by Frankie Maguire to discuss Aston Villa's exit from the fourth round replay of the FA Cup. A home defeat to Chelsea, which I, for one, Frankie, did not see coming whatsoever. Did you? And how are you, by the way?
I'm still sort of recovering from the misery of that. My internal voice has gone a bit Mark Lawrence when he used to commentate on football. Well, I don't really like football, don't know why I watch it. It was brutal. I think you could kind of see it coming, I thought, after about 7 minutes. I thought there was just a pace, an intensity, a drive, a press, and a movement from Chelsea that just looked ominous and threatening. And I thought there's a goal coming soon for them unless we can turn this around, given the fact we actually started the first 3 or 4 minutes quite well. But then once they got that goal, first goal does matter quite a lot in football sometimes. And it just felt like the momentum got with them even more after that. And we were just thrown off our game completely. But the more worrying concern for me was just how similar it was to the Newcastle loss. It was very similar indeed.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I was inclined to open this by saying, I thought we started well, but it literally was like 2 minutes. Like, it was end to end, wasn't it? Like the first 90 seconds, it was like, okay. Like McGinn went down the left-hand side, I think, and it's like, all right, maybe this is going to be one of those games where we start fast and we get the early goal and we kill off the tie early. And yeah, not to be, you're right, 5 or 6 minutes in, you think, oh no, this is not going to go the way we think. And it just didn't look right, did it? I don't quite know why. I can't put my finger on it. Full time was 20 minutes ago or something, so it's difficult to read too much into it as of this evening. Maybe in a couple more days we can kind of think, oh, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. But I'm kind of a little bit dumbstruck by the whole thing. That was a good 11 we put out. Like, we should have. That should be enough to beat Chelsea. This isn't Chelsea of years gone by. This isn't Mourinho's Chelsea fighting for titles. This is Chelsea have been mid-table for 2 seasons. Like, we are on paper better than Chelsea. I thought. Coming into the second or the replay, so second leg coming into the replay, it's home advantage. We're good at Villa Park. We are better than Chelsea. We've got through it. We should get through that. There's a tasty Leeds home tie coming up next, with them we're 1 game away from a semi-final. I was kind of plotting my route to Wembley, to be honest. And I was a little that turned up. That's not who I was expecting to face. That kind of high press, high intensity, closing Villa down. I wasn't familiar with that Chelsea, to be honest.
No, they're a very mixed and poorly structured squad. I think Chelsea. I think they're just wildly bought players, but in amongst all that are some actual real quality players as well. But tonight it was just a game where it absolutely clicked for them, and I think their shape, the way they played us. Whenever Villa were in possession, Chelsea would basically, I thought, go into quite a tight box in the middle. So you'd have Conor Gallagher and Cole Palmer together, pressing our centre-backs, particularly Longley. I thought they were giving him hell all night. They were on him all the time whenever he got the ball. And I think teams know that Villa like to play out from that, down that route, through the left centre-back coming forward, so don't give him time to play. And they were all over him, but they were quite tight to Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, who'd push up and therefore get tighter to Luiz and Kamara. So that basically what kept happening was that it felt like every time Villa had the ball at the back, we'd look forward and it'd be like, well, where do I pass to? How do I get out? And the centre midfielders were kind of taken out of the game because it felt like they're outnumbered. And if you wanted to go out wide, Chelsea's players could go man for man and press on them. And it kind of ended up that, similar to the Newcastle game, where we would, there'd be a kind of mid-block against us and we couldn't really play through it. And in the end, we just kind of resort to long balls, which is quite worrying. It was a question we raised on our podcast, in December, that, as teams get used to Villa now and prepare better for Villa, knowing how good we've been, how are Villa going to react to that as well? Like, it's a new test for us. And, just the 2 results against Newcastle and Chelsea, in both games, it's looked like Villa have played teams that have been high in intensity, high press or fast pressing when they need to be, but also disciplined enough to get into kind of mid-block situations that leave us looking a bit clueless off our game, and just our passing going off as a result of it. Our heads going a little bit from it. So it's definitely something we're going to have to learn from, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of closing down our midfield passing options and resorting to going long, and that's something that isn't as noticeable as a problem when it's Pau Torres who's pinging balls around and directing play from the back. And that's somebody we hugely miss when we're closed down in the way that we are. But again, Douglas Luiz and Boubacar Kamara aren't poor players. We're all fully aware of how good they are. They should be able to, and with time, I hope they will be able to adapt to when they're in these situations. They've got to do something different. They've got to try something different, and that's not on me to say, oh, they should do this and do that. But there's
Yeah.
been occasions now. You keep mentioning Newcastle, and that's the other one. That if we're blocked from playing out from the back by giving Louise or Kamara options in midfield to have to receive the ball and move it forward, we do look around as dumbstruck by this result tonight. They look on the pitch dumbstruck of, oh, don't know what to do. This isn't
Exactly
what
that.
we want to do now. I was going to say, talking about Ezri Konsa later, because it's not really massively relevant to the Chelsea game specifically tonight, but obviously he's injured, as everybody knows. We've not done a specific podcast about it. In a weird way, I see it as some kind of positive because I was fully prepared for it to be like a season-ending injury. So the fact that it's 3 or 4 weeks, if it is that, of course, isn't hugely the end of the world. I think there's some winnable fixtures in the Premier League. And I think John said maybe he's aiming for Spurs as a return, which, of course, we could need him. We could do with him for that, couldn't we? But him not being there as well, it's so silly to say because it's just one player. But Ezri Konsa not being there and not being there at right back as well, it just plays doesn't allow us to play any way the same. And this isn't just, Matty Cash comes in at right back and he's not as good as Ezri Konsa. The players in front of them don't get to play in the same way. The whole right hand side is not as good when only Ezri Konsa is not in there. It's a strange scenario, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, we're definitely more secure when he's Consa's there. Absolutely, he's a leader on the pitch as well. He's got that experience of being at Villa for a few years, probably more so than a few of the other players. So, it is going to be a factor. You'd much rather have him than not.
Yeah.
And on the right hand side, he just is, defensively more solid than Cash is. Cash, is a player who likes to get forward a bit more. But there were times he was sort of getting forward tonight. It kind of felt like, I don't know, him and Bailey just didn't really have much of an understanding. The shape just looked a little bit off to me. I think Konsa is a big loss. I was at that Sheffield United game when he did that injury, and to be honest, when he was first riding around on the floor, I thought, oh my goodness, this looks like a potential season ender. But when he walked off the pitch, I was like, oh, well, thank the goodness for that. But did fear he was going to be out for a little while, and a month. Hopefully, it's not one of these Villa injuries, like Grealish back in the day, where we're all expecting him back, and then see you sometime in May, Ezri. But hopefully he's back as soon as he possibly can be.
The comment here from Craig who says he's tired and is playing a part. I was going to ask you about I saw a comment before we started about our home form isn't good, which sounds crazy, doesn't it, considering the streak we were on up until 3 weeks ago, whatever it is. But obviously dropped points to Sheffield United, lost to Newcastle, lost tonight, of course, in the FA Cup as well, which, in a roundabout way, I'd rather lose in the Cup than the Premier League, which is, I know is going to rub people up the wrong way, but I'll come back to that later. But specifically, the last couple, Newcastle and then tonight, losing back-to-back in... it's not just losing, is it, by one goal? It's a last minute in off the post, lucky deflection or something. We've been dismantled twice back to back by teams that in the league we're better than. We're above them. We should be the better team in those games. So to come back, was it 3-0 and 3-1? That raises question marks a little bit for me. Emery substitutions again, just the similarities in both games of could have changed things at half time. Why we wait until the 70th minute onwards to go, oh, probably should change something. And also, this isn't a specific to tonight thing, and other clubs will have exactly the same. Why did you only start playing when you're already 3-0 down?
Yeah,
we
exactly.
kind of get back into it a little bit and start to do something when we're already kind of out the game by that point. There was never really any chance of a comeback, I didn't feel, based on the first 60-odd minutes, 70-odd minutes. You're 3-0 down, and then all of a sudden you start to ping it around a bit and you think, oh, there is something there. Why is that always the case as well? Other clubs is the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably partly, 60th, 70th minute, the opposition can't, press perhaps as ferociously as they had been in the early part of the game, and maybe the gaps open a little bit. But at the same time, I think something I've praised Emery for a lot since he came in is his substitutions. Generally, since he joined the club, he seems to have always sort of done the right thing at the right time. When you contrast that with, we all love Dean Smith, who I call Sir Dean. But I'd say that was one criticism of him, was his subs would take a while, or he'd leave it a little bit too long sometimes. And Gerrard as well, he never too sure about his subs. So with Emery, it was like a breath of fresh air. But the last two games, Newcastle and Chelsea, it's felt a little bit like at half time, just make a change. I think he made a change. He did make changes against Tottenham away, and that shifted the game for us, didn't it? We were kind of lucky to not be 3-1 down at Tottenham, back in November, I think it was. And then second half, he absolutely dominated them. And I think it was when he made a substitution early on. And I just felt like Newcastle and Chelsea tonight, both games when we brought the subs on, the game's turned. The energy levels have changed. It just feels like maybe at half time rather than the 70th minute was the moment to make those changes.
Let's try to do some positives, shall we? This isn't going to be a long podcast because we don't want to go too much on the defeat, and there aren't many positives. Good for Diaby to get a goal. It's about as positive as I can get. Might be good for his confidence, maybe. I can't even say that with a straight face, really. A positive in a defeat in the FA Cup.
It was a good finish, irregardless of Lee Dixon calling it scrappy. It was not scrappy. It was a really good finish. And yeah, it is important. He's been. I don't think I wouldn't say he's been in poor form. I just think he's been not at the level that he was earlier this season, and looking a little bit lower on confidence. And that's to be expected. He's in a new league, and it is going to take him time to adapt to it. He's not always going to be brilliant in his first season in particular, but he's had great moments with us this season. But he has had a bit of a lull recently, and he has just felt a little bit like he needs a goal, and maybe even to just play out on the right at times, to be able to turn and run at a player rather than always having his back to goal and having big players like Dan Burn on him, breathing down his neck all the time. So, he got to play out right against Sheffield United when he came on the other day, and he had bright moments. And then tonight, when he actually played pretty well tonight, I thought, when he came on as a second striker, and it was a good goal. So, who knows? Maybe he'll take that energy into the game on Sunday against Manchester United.
Oh, we could certainly do with it, couldn't we? Before we mention Man United, for people who are listening along live, if you can leave a comment in the live chat with how annoyed you are out of 10, probably is a scale that doesn't really work, by losing tonight, by going out of the FA Cup, because I am a big kind of advocate for winning a trophy. What a stupid thing to say, but I was very, very annoyed and angry after the Everton Cup defeat back in September, whenever it was, and still don't really like the fact that that's the way it went. And people always say things like, yeah, but we're good in the league now, so surely you're over that. Not really. The Carabao Cup is a great opportunity for Villa to win a trophy. The FA Cup traditionally has not been a good opportunity for us to win a trophy. Our record in it has been abysmal up until this year. This is the first time we've got past the third round for 7 or 8 years or something. Yeah. To get to the fourth round and then a replay, and I'm thinking, oh, well, we'll beat Chelsea at home, that's fine. With the kind of mouth-watering tie of Leeds as a lower league opposition at home again in the fifth round, and kind of the competition opens up a little bit. For me, I'm thinking, well, the FA Cup's now a possibility as well. I'm not saying I'm just going to go and win the lot, but something that Villa could and should be taken seriously. So to lose tonight in the manner that we lost as well, I am annoyed by it. I don't think I can just go, oh, well, it's only the FA Cup, I'm not that bothered. I said earlier about it's kind of a positive that we've got a bad performance out of the way in a cup game rather than a league game, because I'm massively contradicting myself there, but I'm only thinking about the next one, really. The thought of losing to Man United really makes me feel sick. I don't like Man United. I've said it millions of times. That gap we've got on the top 4 or into the top 6, the gap on Man United, could either be 5 points or 11 points come Sunday evening. That's a massive difference. The thought of maybe we've got a bad performance out of the way and we'll come out against Man United all guns blazing and beat them is kind of in the back of my mind, that maybe we've kind of sacrificed tonight because of that. That's a massive if. I'm more likely thinking Newcastle, Chelsea in our recent form, maybe Man United will come and beat us as well. And that's not a position I thought I'd be in, but you can just see it, can't you? Man United picking up a bit of form, closing the gap to 5 points, taking that momentum, and Villa kind of going downwards rather than the other way. Yeah. I'm hoping that is not the case. As I've waffled there long enough to ask some comments in, 3 out of 10. I'm being pragmatic. Focus is now all on the top 4. 7 out of 10. 5 out of 10. At least it's an improvement on the last 10 years. 2 out of 10. Top 4 and the Conference League is more of a priority. 9. Even the Dogheads spanked Chelsea. Yeah, it doesn't always work like that, though, does it? It's like one of those things that's like so and so beat Barcelona and we beat so and so, so we must be better than Barcelona.
Yeah.
3 out of 10 to be annoyed by the cup. 11 out of 10 for the performance, though. I think that's probably fair for most people. 4, Anthony says, if we win at the weekend, which is, like I said, a big if. I'm just worried about Man United. I really,
Yeah.
really don't want to lose to them. So,
Feels
Frankie,
like
I've talked for enough there. I've waffled for a little bit. How annoyed are you tonight specifically, and what do you think about Man United?
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably at a sort of an 8 out of 10 for annoyance, in the sense it was so reminiscent of the Newcastle loss. I think it just felt a little bit like, whenever we've had like setbacks under Emery before, we tended to learn from it and come out and surprise everyone and do just better, much better in the next game. It just felt like a really similar performance, and the opposition looking far more, having a good game plan to try and stop us, and therefore looking more energized with it, and making us just look a bit lethargic and looking around a bit, unsure of ourselves. And players just not really being involved in the game, like Watkins struggling to get involved in both those games. So that, I'd say 8 out of 10 for a repeat, basically, of what happened last week. As for Manchester United, I was there in 1995 when we beat them 3-1. I was there in a year and a half ago when we beat them 3-1. So I'm daring to. I was also there in 1994, the Coca-Cola Cup final, when we beat them 3-1. So I'm daring to dream that I am the one lucky charm, because I will be there on Sunday to see Aston Villa take on Manchester United. I've already had Man United friends of mine sending me messages of Eric Ten Hag making notes about what he's seeing tonight. Look, I am much less confident about the United game than I was when I booked the tickets for it about 2 weeks ago. I was prepared to go and be like, right, I can't wait to see this now. I really believe we can get a result. But seeing them, I look at Garnacho, Rashford with his pace. Højlund will be required to do a lot of pressing as well. I already can see it in my head what's going to happen. I just feel like Garnacho's going to get a goal. Rashford probably get one on the break. But at the same time, like, I'd like to think that under Unai Emery, we're not going to repeat the same mistake 3 times in a row at home, and that there'll be some shift, some change, maybe a tweak here or there that might just throw Man United off their game plan for us, and might just be enough for us to get going. But I think it's key that we don't concede early. If we concede in that first 10, 15 minutes, then it's going to be really hard to mentally get over that block. But if we can, hold out, not concede early, get through the first 15, 20 minutes, and maybe even get a goal ourselves, then I think we can still get the job done against them.
Yeah, I hope so. We've got a match preview for Man United that we'll record on Friday after the press conference, and me and John, that'll be our next main Claret and Blue podcast after this one. I think we're doing a Villa voice notes with Matt Kendrick tomorrow at some point. But yeah, the Inside Bodymore preview show for Man United will be our next main piece, and then we'll do a post-match show for Sunday as well after we've been to Villa Park and back. I just really hope it's a win. Even a draw doesn't feel. We did the Q&A. Was it in the office? Yeah, in the office on Monday. We kind of started speaking about whether draw was okay, and in the end I kind of thought, yeah, it probably is, because it just means neither of us have lost any ground, or we've not lost any ground and they've not gained anything. And obviously it makes it harder for them to gain anything in the future because they're not playing us directly again, so they can't influence us, kind of thing. I don't know whether draw is good enough after that. I feel like I'm in like crisis territory already after 2 defeats in 20 odd or whatever, which is madness, really. But with these things, we kind of, when I start looking ahead at, this game, how many points are we going to get? People go, 1 game at a time. So I'm kind of like going backwards now. As much as like the first half of the season's been great, I can still only react to things now a game at a time. And tonight was crap. Tonight was terrible. And if we play anything like we did in the first 10 or 15 minutes today on Sunday, we will concede early. And they will sit on that, and they'll beat us, and that'll be that. And that points gap will be down to 5, and all of a sudden we've got twitchy bums, and it just won't be nice at all. And Villa can still go on to qualify for the Champions League. If they do lose on Sunday, of course, there's still a lot of football to be played. But when you can make that gap 11 points, that's an opportunity you cannot afford to miss. And I really hope that Emery has got them fired up over these next couple of days, and we come out and we not batter them in the sense of a great performance, but a 2-0 comfortable win where Villa go, right, we mean business. We have to win today.
Absolutely. And, I've been, I remember vividly the 98-99 season under John Gregory, and there was a couple of seasons under Martin O'Neill where every time Villa would have a great start to the season, get to February, and it all just kind of ran out of momentum. Now, we've got a real high class manager in Unai Emery, and I think this is like a test for Villa now. I think we're a high quality squad, high quality with some absolutely fantastic world class players, and this is a test for us now. Like, are we going to be the Villa of old? We've been saying for like since Emery came in that there's so many things that have happened under him where it's been like the Villa of old would have done this, but this Villa haven't done that. It's so this is a test now. This was always going to happen this season. At some point, teams were going to start to prepare better for Villa and figure out ways to play against us. And it's for us to adapt. And how well we can do that is crucial to whether we finish in, quite frankly, Champions League places. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether we can sort of get away from being what Villa were of old, where you'd get to February and it all just sort of petered out a bit. It's crucial. I think it's really important that Emery's able to show us that we're different to that.
Just a very quick word. So it's been in the comments a lot about Lee Dixon's commentary. You mentioned it in passing before, scrapping Moussa Diaby. A word for Enzo Fernandez's free kick as well, which was postage stamp, top quality, world class free kick.
Yeah.
To Emi Martinez's don't get anywhere near that, sadly, and he's the best goalkeeper in the world. A great piece of individual skill, and you kind of slump in your seat and go, oh, God, here we go. And now they got one of the best goals in the FA Cup this season to keep replaying every year, and it's against Villa, of course it is. Was it a free kick though? Lee Dixon doesn't care.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe that when I heard that.
I care, Lee, and every other Villa fan cares. If it wasn't a free kick, I'm not saying that changed the game, but come on.
Yeah, I tend to not like pay too much attention to commentators when they say silly things, but tonight felt like there were a glut of comments where I'd be like, "Did he just say that? What?" I think he said Thiago's goal was.
McGinn had a strike, and it went out for a goal kick, and he was clipped. And I actually think it was a foul, to be honest.
It was a foul
on the replay, and I think if one's a free kick, was the other one? Yeah, whatever. But Lee Dixon said something like, "Oh, he's claiming for the foul. He wouldn't have been if it went in, though." Well, yeah, obviously not, 'cause he just scored a goal. Why would he be then claiming for a foul? So if it's a foul, it's a foul, isn't it? It's again just stupid little comments that just wind me up. Lee Dixon's a terrible commentator for a proper broadcaster like BBC, ITV. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a pretty frustrating listen, I'll be honest. I think there was another one as well about the Chelsea keeper caught the ball and he said, "I'm surprised he hasn't done an Emi Martinez and gone down and time wasted and all this." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." It's just funny how often you hear ex-pro commentators and just sit there shaking your head going, I get more out of listening to fan media. That's genuinely half the time.
Well, yeah. That'll do us, Frankie, I think. I said I wanted to keep this pretty tight, and we've done longer than I thought. I was going to aim for 20 minutes, and we've done almost 25. As I said, our next pre-match show will be Man United, where we'll talk about it in more detail after Unai's press conference. If we can speak to a Man United reporter as well to get their version of events, that'll be handy. I'll see what I can do over the next couple of days. The post-match show will return on Sunday. That should be me and Matt Kendrick for that one. If you've missed Matt Kendrick's audio-only show that we released last week called Villa Voice Notes, you can go back and listen to that. They're 10-minute rambles from Matt about anything Villa, basically. Last week was about going to the matches with family and what that means to him, which I was surprised that was the angle I took it. I basically just said, "You go and film this thing, do what you want," and that's what he gave me. Tomorrow's episode is about the Sports Argus. Do you remember the Sports Argus, Frankie?
Yeah, the pink paper.
Yeah, that's how I always remember. I remember going to get them for my dad, and I don't know whether my dad will be watching this one because we've lost. He's a fair weather podcast viewer. But I remember going to pick up the pink paper from the corner shop and stuff when I was a kid. And I think Matt said it finished in 2006. I would have only been 11 when it finished. I wasn't really into it as a teenager or anything, but I remember picking it up from the local news agent. So it's kind of like a little memories of the Sports Argus and Matt Kendrick, which is again an interesting listen for anyone who remembers the paper, and anyone younger than probably 30 who doesn't. Maybe you'll learn something from that as well. So that'll be on the Spotify and Apple podcast feed tomorrow. Wherever you're listening to this, it's in the same place, so that'll be available tomorrow. Earlier today, it's a double upload day for us. Sorry, Frank, I'll let you go in a sec while I was doing all my plugging on other stuff. Me and John did an episode in the office on Monday called The Debate, which is a new series we're launching where we take an Aston Villa topic and one of us has to argue for it, one of us has to argue against it. Now, ideally, we'd actually believe the arguments we were saying, and that will be the case in the future. But we did whether Villa need to leave Villa Park or not. And me and John both agree that we shouldn't leave Villa Park. And we get asked this in Q&As all the time, and we just go, what a stupid question. No way. And we move on. And that's not fair, is it? Like, there's genuinely people that think leaving Villa Park and building a new stadium is an option and something we should be looking into as a club. I will reiterate again for the millionth time, the club are not looking to move away from Villa Park. That's the kind of legal disclaimer I have to say. But it is something worth talking about, and us just going, what a stupid question is unfair. So we tried to play for and against. John pulled out the against bit of paper out of the mug. So I had to argue for, which I said I don't agree with. But I had one of the comments was like, how can you argue it if you don't believe in it? I did a tweet the day before we filmed and it got 100 replies. And I used those replies to kind of make my argument.
Right.
So, yeah, if you want to go back and see whether we should be leaving Villa Park, there's loads of comments as well from people who have just read the title and not watched it. And they've just gone, what are these two idiots talking about saying we should leave Villa Park? So, no, if you actually watched it, most of the video is us going, yeah, we wouldn't leave Villa Park. We want to expand on what we've got and make it better. And I've just kind of made a bit of a say for why I think we should leave Villa Park for the sake of the video. So if you want to go and watch that or listen to it, again, it's on the feed where you're listening to this. It's on YouTube as well. It's had a good response so far. And if you want to suggest another topic for me and John, or me and Matt, or John and Matt to debate, you can share those with us as well. Right, Frankie, thank you so much for joining me on Wednesday evening. I am getting out of breath, so I'll say thank you for watching, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.